Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk. Always good to talk. I got into podcasting slightly before the lockdown and pandemic. I produced a book for my good friend Stoney McGurn, and that's how it all started. Stoney was born in 1941. He's alive and kicking. People do ask me, is he alive? He's very much alive. Life from 1941 all the way up until recently. Travels all over down south to times of Martin Luther King. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, a moving company here in New York City. Liffey Van Lines have been around longer than the New York City Marathon. They're running very, very smooth, and when it comes to lifting, let Liffey do the lifting. I have good news today for listeners. Liffey's operating costs have been reduced dramatically thanks to the price of oil. Remember, I predicted price of oil coming down a number of months ago. Oil is down to about $60 a barrel, and it will be coming down further. Liffey has cleaned up there, cut some fat, passing those operating costs and savings on to you, the customer. A shout out to my friend Paddy McCarthy of the Irish Examiner USA. Paddy is from Cork in Ireland. Good friends. He has a newspaper called the irishexaminerusa.com. And if you want to catch up on events and festivals, there's a lot of that going on. And I will be talking to some of his people in the next few podcasts. James Prendergast and Siobhan McEntee Gibbons from the Mayo Society of New York. Jim McAndrew is the president and Maureen Gibbons is the vice president. Lots of activities. Check out a big race night coming up in the Gibbons Home Place Bar. I'll have more information on that for you soon. And another podcast coming up soon is about a greyhound, and the greyhound's name is It's Good to Talk. If you like my podcast today, subscribe. My guest today is none other than Paul Mooney, all the way from Limerick. Famous people came out of Limerick. Donogh O'Malley was in the 1960s, introduced free education to all of the students in Ireland, first level, second level, and so on, and now it's third level. And that was a huge achievement, and he did it on his own, like an executive order, and good for him. Dessie O'Malley, another O'Malley, went on to start the Progressive Democrats, a party to combat Charles J. Hoy, who was kind of bullying the Irish political scene for a long time, and a third party was needed. So that was Dessie O'Malley and Mary Harney, a good friend of mine. But let me get to my guest immediately. Paul Mooney, welcome to It's Good to Talk.
Thank you, John.
You're from Limerick, and tell us more about you and Limerick.
Well, that's a lovely little introduction there. The very first person that I voted for in an election was actually Tim O'Malley, who was a cousin of Des O'Malley. And the funny thing about that is that don't ever follow my lead in politics because you don't get in. Tim didn't actually get in on the election that I voted for, but he was I think he was a Minister of State for about 5 or 6 years in that Progressive Democrat era. So yeah, Limerick was a hotbed at that time for good characters coming through. Jim
Kenny and lots of characters.
Yeah.
Well, Limerick itself is a city, for my USA listeners and my global listeners in Germany and France, at the end of the Shannon River and close to Shannon Airport. Shannon Airport itself, first international airport, first in the world to introduce duty-free. And that's very, very significant, and I hope that continues with the way the world is going. Duty-free is important, and it'll be more important in the days and weeks ahead. So Shannon Airport was also a refueling stop for the US soldiers coming back from various wars in Iraq and all that. Strategic point. It also was incidentally important to Aeroflot, the Soviet airline. They had to stop to refuel at Shannon Airport if they were flying from Moscow, say, to LA. I don't know if they do that anymore, but it was important at the time.
Yeah.
Tell me more about you, Paul. When did you leave Limerick, and why did you leave Limerick?
Same as anybody else. I guess I was one of the people post the 2008 crash, which a lot of people leaving that time. I think probably your generation was the 1980s, and that particular wave might have been a bit worse, I'd say. But after 2008, there wasn't a lot going on in Ireland, and a bunch of us left. A lot of people down in Australia, a lot of people here in America. So I left around that time and got married, have a couple of kids. Nothing unusual about that.
Okay, so you're in the restaurant business. I know you have an establishment called the Milton on 2nd Avenue.
Yeah.
And you opened another establishment called the Office. Tell me, how did you get into the restaurant business?
I've always been involved in it. Took a job when I think it was 15. The great Peter Clossy. For anybody who's of a rugby persuasion, they'll know that name. Peter, I'm a life member of Young Munsters Rugby Football Club. Peter, of course, got, I'd say, about 50, 60 caps for Ireland.
Very good.
And he opened a pub, super pub, actually, right on Howley's Quay there in Limerick. And
Okay.
made a job when I was 15. And I worked for him for about 10 years before I headed off.
Great, that was a great experience, and that's a great foundation.
Yeah. Peter and a man called Brian Smith from Cork. They were partners. Brian was a great character as well. Yeah, worked in that for about 10 years. And then
And we're more than qualified to be a bartender in New York City
I
when
don't know
you're.
about that, John. Actually,
It's a big thing. It's like Greek restaurants and Irish bars and Italian pizzerias, pizza stores. Like
yeah,
every nationality seems to have their own flair, for a certain trend, and it's great. That's what makes New York City diverse.
yeah.
So
It's funny
kind
that
of like
the Irish ended up in the
Milton
bar.
is on Second Avenue. The Office, your other bar restaurant, is on Second Avenue as well. They're only a couple of blocks apart.
Yeah,
In the day-to-day running of restaurants, I'm sure profit and loss is important. Your gross profit is important, and your net profit is what's most important. And a lot of restaurants and even businesses don't keep an eye on the gross profit and the net profit and the profit and loss. So there can be a lot of waste. I know when you buy in the booze, it comes in measured, it goes out measured, and there should be no waste in the kitchen. So they're kind of simple things in any business. But we're facing uncertain times with tariffs, so it'll be more difficult, I think, for restaurants in terms of buying ingredients, the ingredients you buy. Any comments on that?
the tariff situation is unfolding. As you know, I'm not too certain that anybody quite knows what, and that's
Nobody.
part of the problem, I think.
That is a big problem, yeah.
That there's no clear kind of direction on it. But you're correct. Big part of the restaurant business is
The ingredients.
old things like French wine. People still want to drink French wine, and people still want to drink Irish whiskey.
Yeah,
On the other side, I think people like bourbon.
right.
So Americans produce great bourbon and things like that. So that situation is unfolding. I'm not too sure how that land, but that's part of the issue.
Well, you hit on two things there on products number one and people's choice is number two. So I'll give you a little analogy. It'll take me maybe half a minute. And these are people, I don't know, maybe you know them, maybe you don't know them. But there's a man called Paddy Murphy, and he came here like yourself, myself, on Aer Lingus, and a carpenter, and he turned out to be more than an Aer Lingus carpenter, a great carpenter. Like he loves wood and woodwork and making cabinets and making tables and all the stuff. And he developed himself so far and high that he does a lot of work on Park Avenue and Fifth Avenue, high in work. So he has plenty of money to spend. And when he comes to a bar like the Milton, his choice is he likes the brandy, he likes a double brandy, and he likes that served with water on the side. Nothing wrong with that. Now, for his food, he's choice. He likes smoked salmon, and as you know, smoked salmon can be Irish smoked salmon, it can be Scottish smoked salmon, or it can be Canadian smoked salmon.
Or Alaskan. Or Alaskan.
Or Alaskan, yeah, okay. So these are places that will be hit with tariffs and salmon. Now, to go and give him a little more upbeat there to his meal, he likes a salad on the side. He likes avocados, and they're sourced in Mexico. So that really adds again to the price of his meal. So his meal probably between now and a few months will double. Now, he has a girlfriend, and she works on Park Avenue as well. She's a home care. She has a lady to mind, a very rich old lady to mind, and she makes a good dollar herself. So when they meet in the Milton, we'll say, her name is Lucy Ward, her family comes from some part of Mayo, and she likes to, when she's off work, likes to enjoy herself. Now her choice of drink is tequila, and she likes tequila, and tequila comes, I guess, from Mexico. So you can imagine this couple sitting down at a table in the Milton now. We'll give them a table because we're classy. And Lucy, at times, with 4 or 5 tequilas in her, or maybe more, and that's one thing about New York. The conversation is overheard and spread, and nobody cares what people talk about. But Lucy is often heard saying to Paddy, her boyfriend and partner, "Come on, Paddy, darling, what would you rather nail tonight, a piece of wood or me?" So that type of talk goes round. So in your opinion, the price of their evening out in the Milton will probably go from maybe, say they're spending $100 now, if they're lucky. And that will probably go to in excess of 200. The salmon, the brandy, the tequila, and the avocados. Or will you just take them off the menu?
Well, good question. To be honest, as I said, it's unfolding, so I don't quite know yet. I haven't changed the price yet, but that is something that's been going on for a long time in terms of the cost of everything. I have meetings with my partner quite regularly, and we're talking about it has to go up. We always say it has to go up a dollar, but a dollar every time is quite a bit of money, eventually, but you have to walk a kind of a fine line because you don't want to alienate people and you don't want to bear the costs either. So,
Right.
well,
you have to maintain your
John,
margin, yeah.
well, as you know, John, the Upper East Side is it's very local. It's probably the only part of New York that everybody still knows everybody. If you're down in Times Square, I suppose you're passing that on to tourists, and there's no pushback on that. But
Right. Okay.
On the Upper East Side, you've got people that you'll see all the time, and you don't want to be, up in prices. You have to, but you don't want to.
Yeah. And as you said there, you mentioned about the uncertainty. If you knew for sure that the price of avocados, for example, was going to remain the same, if you knew that the price of smoked salmon, whether it's from Alaska or Shannon Airport, was going to remain the same, then you could plan your budget and plan your menu and say, well, now when Paddy Murphy and Lucy Ward comes in, they're not going to get ripped off, going from $150 a night to $300 a night. Now, they can well afford it. I mean, that's called discretionary income, and they're entitled to enjoy themselves.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that Lucy and Paddy should go home and, get a Chinese takeaway. God, did I say Chinese takeaway? And let her do a bit of knitting. Well, I know the type of knitting she'd be doing because she has her name Lucy Ward isn't Lucy Ward. She's more than Lucy Ward. They do frequent your establishment a lot. They do, yeah. And on busy nights, like I think Thursdays and Fridays.
Oh, good.
You'll see them, and they never look for anything. They never ask for a buyback.
Yeah.
They never ask for a Christmas drink, and they're very friendly. And just because the bit of PDA, public display of affection, who cares? They love each other. I never know, does he love Wood more than he loves Lucy? But that's their problem, not my problem.
More love, John.
Yes. Now the other issue that a lot of people on the Upper East Side talk about too, and sometimes you're right about the uncertainty. Sometimes the price of oil is coming down, as I mentioned there, about Liffey movers.
Yeah.
And that's good for moving companies and freight companies. It's good for airlines. And then the price of dollar coming down too. So there's benefits, but you have to know how to dance.
Well, the thing about prices is that they never come down. So that's the major issue. For whatever market forces that are at play in any given time, the prices go up, but they don't come down. We remember, of course, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was something in the Suez Canal where a tanker got blocked. Yeah. And, of course, the whole world was told it stopped the trade flow and everything went up. But, I mean, when the tanker was removed about 5 years, nothing came down, did it? So things that drive prices up, if you remove those conditions, they don't bring them down. So that's the worry for...
You're leading me into another topic there, which is often talked about in the Upper East Side, because you mentioned the Upper East Side local. And when you have local, you're going to have gossip, of course. And there's nothing wrong with gossip. I mean, I'm not a man for gossip myself, but I do hear things when I'm out and about, especially in the Milton and the office. Now, eggs is a big thing lately. Eggs went up and eggs came down and eggs went up and eggs came down. And it's like that story, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And I'm thinking to myself, there's one big guy left out of this whole thing, and that's the cock. You don't have eggs if you don't have the cock. And a lot of Americans don't realize that the eggs come out of the hen, the chicken, but there's no chickens if there's no cock. So a very important guy. Not alone does he raise the alarm in the morning, but he rises in the morning in my local village and announces if there's something happening. For example, if there's a red fox in the hen house, well, the hens are destroyed in blood, then the price of eggs go up. But eggs will come down eventually because as the hens lay more eggs and they're fertilized by the cock, young chickens come along and those young chickens start to lay more eggs. And that chicken is called a pullet, Pullet. Yeah. And those eggs are smaller, as you know. I grew up on a farm, you're a city boy. But those eggs are a little bit smaller. And, hens are amazing that they can lay one egg every day. I'm sure it's painful for a young chicken to lay an egg, probably more painful than childbirth, but I don't know anything about that. Continue about the restaurant business, Paul.
John, that was a wonderful tangent. That was classic John Healy there now. You forgot to mention the rooster. It sounded like...
I did.
No, that would be my concern, is that things don't come down. If that thing with the eggs, by the way, if you make some of those classic cocktails like a whiskey sour, they're egg white cocktails. So,
oh, wow.
Well, the foam in the top of the cup is egg white.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine I think what are eggs right now? $1 an egg.
Yeah,
So you put, are you supposed to change the price of that cocktail? Are you supposed to do a whole new menu,
yeah.
waiting on whether or not that's where the price will settle? It's an unusual conundrum.
It is, and anything like that, I think, can be produced locally. There was a rumor there, well, a rumor again, gossip, that USA was going to import eggs from Turkey. Well, if you're going to import eggs from Turkey, and then all of a sudden from Turkey, I don't mean the turkey bird, I mean Turkey country. Then if there's a tariff on eggs coming in, the eggs are going to be the same price as local eggs.
Yeah,
Like, can we do without avocados? Can we do without smoked salmon? Can we do without eggs? Can we do without brandy? Can you do without French wine? Can you switch to California wine?
yeah. I don't know. I think all of those types of things are built into people's psyches. I mean, if you it's just a matter of fact that if somebody is a wine drinker, just
Do you want a
go
favorite?
they go towards French wines.
Yeah.
I've been down in Napa Valley and there are fantastic
Mm.
American made wines. I don't know if America has the infrastructure. I hope it does. If Trump goes through with all of this tariff stuff, if it goes through, if the intention is that everything is produced here, I think fantastic. But is the infrastructure in place, and how long will it take for that not to hit the ordinary punter? I think it would
Yeah.
take quite a good deal of time, in my opinion. But again, I'm not an expert on it.
Well, like comparing, like, say, finance ministers, like Donald O'Malley was Minister of Education, he made a big decision with free education. Albert Reynolds in Ireland was a hotel owner, hotelier, knew the ordinary people, and the budgets would come, and he never touched the price of the humble pint of Guinness or beer. But
Yeah,
because that was for the regular working class man. Okay, some of the premium drinks you could add on a little bit to bring in more revenue for the government. Now Trump is he's a pioneer. He's a pioneer. That means he doesn't drink. He's a non-smoker. He doesn't vape, I think. Elon Musk, I don't know what he does. He looks a bit high at times. It's like what's good for them, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And just because they don't want it and they don't need it, and then they want what they want and they don't tax what they like. It's very much like schoolyard bullying, to a degree. And when you have a white South African telling the whole country of America what they should do and what they shouldn't do. So I'm going to pause there and take a song. Would you like to sing a song first, Paul?
no, Jesus, no, John. It's way too early now in the day for song.
Okay, all right. Well, then Jimmy is running around someplace. Jimmy, I want you to sing a song for Paul Mooney. He owns a bar called the Milton and the Office, and you just might get a gig there when you reach the age of 18, which is 18 or 21. How old can you drink in this country? Jimmy, sing any song you like today.
By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling, Michael, they've taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's corn, so the young might see the morn. Now a prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling, nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. 'Gainst the famine and the crown, I rebelled, they cut me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely harbour wall, where she watched the last star falling, prison ship sailed out against the sky. Sure she lived in hope and prayer for her love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry.
Jimmy, thank you very much. Good choice and good song. So back to you, Paul. The future, like, it's hard to predict. We live in uncertain times. There's no doubt about that. And you and everybody else in business, whether it's the restaurant business or any business, has to deal with the uncertainty. And everyone in business hate that. You like to have an idea where you can make your projections for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, and even 5 years, and say your fixed costs are your fixed costs.
Yeah.
It's like you have the cost of probably your rent, you have Con Edison. So those things you kind of know month to month. You have the cost of labour. We assume that doesn't go up or down too much. But then what's the things that can change is the cost of ingredients.
Yeah, and that's been kind of a steady incline, I think, over the last 4 or 5 years. Obviously, we go back to Suez Canal issue, we go to COVID. There was, a huge talk of how the supply chain was affected by COVID. All of that increased. It increased again. It will most certainly increase as this tariff war situation unfolds. And again, I go back, I'm sorry to be a broken record, John.
Okay.
I go back to the fact that they really don't go down. I mean, you point to maybe the eggs might be the outlier. Maybe when hens lay more eggs, they might come down. But that's the outlier. The general trend is that when they go up, they don't come down. Has a pint of Guinness, for example, ever come down?
Right.
I don't think it has.
No, it hasn't, no.
There used to be fellas, I'll follow it to a fiver. Do you remember that?
I do indeed, yeah. Or more, yeah. 10, it's 10. I think I had Michael D. McAndrew on here, a sports journalist. He owns a property near Lacken Cross between Ballina and Clada. And a pint there, I think he said, is €8 something.
Yeah.
And he passed it off that we're paying for the scenery. Well, we can't eat scenery,
Well, it's extraordinary because think about that. Say a pint is.
I would love a pint of Guinness in Bessie's Bar in Lacken Cross at €8. But then again, if it goes to €10, what am I going to do? I'm still going to drink the pint of Guinness.
But
I'm not going to look out the window and say, "Fuck the weather, it's raining again in this fucking place." That'll make me drink 10 pints of Guinness.
But John, say
that's €100 in just
but
say hours.
Right. Okay. So match that to the society, right? So say a pint goes to €8. What's the industrial wage? What's the minimum wage? What are the factors that affect things? I hear all the time, particularly young people. I'm not that young anymore. I'm not old, but I'm not that young. But I hear they can't buy houses.
Right.
So back in, we'll say the 60s, 70s, people could probably buy a house on a school teacher's salary or a guarda's salary or a milkman's salary. I'm sure they probably could get that done. It would be difficult. There isn't a chance. There isn't a chance of that happening in the modern world.
In the local scene here again, we got back to the Upper East Side, New York, where the Milton bar is and the Office bar is, and the people come in and they talk and all that. Like when you arrived here in the 80s, 90s, whatever as the case may be, the golden rule was that you got a job, of course, and your first week's wages, you saved it up to pay the rent. Your second week's wages, you saved in a savings account for a rainy day, and then you had another week to go out and enjoy yourself. Like Paddy Murphy and Lucy Ward, that you enjoyed it, and you're entitled to do that because you worked.
Yeah.
But those four things, if you were able to make that wage, you had a good living and all that, then you paid back into society. I mean, I used to be at St. John's University, and luckily enough, my mother's uncle left a will, so my education was paid for, my clothes were paid for, and so I was able to get a part-time job and work and still have my education paid for. Well, thanks to Donald O'Malley for free education. St. John's University is not a cheap university by any means. And as for Trump University, I never applied for that. I don't know, I'd be overqualified for that. Harvard, I did a few weeks in Harvard as a special advisor to economic development at the time, which was the iPhone, but I won't go into that, that's for another day. Pluses and minuses to when it comes to a free education or paying for education, but education is important, very important in every society. Unfortunately, here in America, there's a lot of negativity with the education at the moment, unfortunately. So hopefully parents of students will see that.
Well, funny you touched on that there with free education, Donald O'Malley, obviously, but it's kind of a sacred thing in Ireland that you don't, probably everywhere, until recently, I think, in the States, the same, that education was kind of sacrosanct, and you wouldn't really, who would ask to defund Department of Education? I don't, in my experience, most people would always think, how do you get more money into it?
Yeah,
That would have been
better results.
yeah, that would be the traditional logic. I don't think that they value that here. Should, because the business of education in the United States is huge. If you look at a young student in Ireland, you probably don't think, that's somebody going off to learn something about this or that, the other. In the States, they look at a young student and go, "There's 50 grand a year,"
Yeah,
or something to that effect.
yeah.
I
And
don't think.
that's sad, but if they have to work 10 years to pay off student loans and stuff like
Yeah.
that, well, then maybe they're better off to,
Can you imagine?
Paddy Murphy, get a trade and become a carpenter or a plumber or electrician,
Well, can
something
you
that there would be demand for.
can you imagine if you were starting out again, and say, you went about your business, you got your education, and then you had what is it, in effect, a mortgage hanging around
Right.
you at 18 years of age. And by the way, imagine that, 18, 19, 20, when you're at your stupidest,
Yeah,
in
really.
terms of, I mean that, I don't mean that.
No, I know, I understand that totally. Yeah, and I mean, I never say I know everything. I know a little bit about a lot of things, and that's useful. I think in myself, I wouldn't want to know everything. I mean, see there in the White House recently, a guy from Harvard University who studied an only child. I don't know why that's referenced, but a guy that was spoiled all his life, and in 1 month he's making economic decisions for the entire country. He never had. He grew up with the gold and silver spoon. He doesn't know what a recession is. He doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and typically of people his age and younger people, they never lived through a recession. And I will give some tips in a minute of how people should plan to, tighten their belt when this happens. And it probably will be
You sound like
the latter quarter of this year.
you sound like Charles Haughey there, tightened the belt. Wasn't that his?
Well, it's a word for saying where, that you
I'm,
have to
I'm, I'm teasing.
make savings in your own household, like a regular household.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm only joking there, but
That's okay. It's good to laugh. And if people like this podcast, it's good to talk. Hit the subscribe button. It's free to subscribe to this podcast. And we do like to tell the truth, because the naked truth is always better than a good dressed up lie. Now, some saving tips I'll give today to my listeners when it comes down to maybe in a few months or the latter in the year, when they will realize that prices are, gone way, way up and different things. First place to look in your house is, I think, a good place for a lot of people is to check the bathroom. And people that have about 20 different bottles of shampoo, well, if you have 20 bottles of different shampoo, you have enough shampoo to last you for 2 years. So you shouldn't be concerned about the price of shampoo. And you can always get a cheap haircut or shave your head. You don't need any shampoo. That's one saving. And there are other products too that you can economize on. Say, look at your kitchen pantry and canned food and tin food. Check, of course, the best by dates and see there what you have and what you need. And then when you go to the supermarket, make choices, like see where the local produce is coming from. A lot of produce comes from New Jersey, should be cheaper, transport, everything. So they're basic things, but consider that in everything else. And when it comes to the world of luxuries, like art, maybe for example, you can go to thrift shops and get good deals in things like art if you're into that, and indeed clothing too. So you will survive the recession. May not be easy, you may have to make choices. Like Paddy Murphy and Lucy Ward, they may have to pass on that smoked salmon at the Milton and the avocado salad, and maybe be happy with 2 eggs and a portion of beans and a sausage.
Paddy,
Anyway,
if you're listening, don't pass on it.
well, most important that people should enjoy themselves, and okay, if they have income to spend it. I mean, definitely don't
Yeah,
leave it there.
but you touched on that as well, John. Like discretionary income is what you said there a while
Yeah,
ago. That's key to the whole thing, right? Because whatever people do in terms of rent or in terms of a mortgage or a car payment or things like that, they're things that they have to do, right?
yes,
My business is the extra little bit.
yeah,
Is when people and people have to enjoy that. So that
yeah,
there's when you want somebody to come into your restaurant, you're offering them a beer, of course, and
yeah,
food, but you're offering them an experience because
yes,
most of their life is paying that rent and
yeah.
that mortgage and
Yeah, they're entitled to enjoy themselves and go out and meet people
yes,
and be social and talk. It's good to talk
yeah,
and see what's happening in the world and get away maybe from the television in the corner that's commentators aren't economists and the weatherman, you get fed up listening to him. You can look out the window and go for a walk and that'll give you the local weather forecast.
yeah.
Paul, how do we get in touch with you, or more importantly, not you, because it's not about you, it's about the Milton and indeed the office. When I had my restaurant, Mother Hubbard's, I promoted the brand Mother Hubbard's. I didn't promote John Healy because I'm not selling John Healy, I'm selling Mother Hubbard's.
John,
Thank you.
you must have hit pay dirt when Christy Moore mentioned Mother Hubbard's in that. What was that?
Oh, the song Welcome to the Cabaret. Well, there was a lot more marketing then, but it's great that you remember Christy Moore, he's still alive, and that song. But that's how branding works in the world of marketing.
Yeah.
Everything you do that mentions the name, and if the name is Mother Hubbard, you're meant. If the name is Liffey Moving Company, let Liffey do the lifting. That's all you need to remember. You don't need to have to remember John Healy or who the owners are or anything like that. When it comes to selling your product, then people want to buy Mother Hubbard's, or they might want to buy Liffey Moving Company. I'm not saying it's for sale, and if it was for sale, I would be the first one to gossip about it right here, and you'd be the second person to know, Paul. And then it's a bit like someone having a good meal in Finnegan's Wake, and the man lets a fart and the woman belches, and that all arrives at the Milton.
My God,
That arrives at the Milton quicker than you can say ABC.
John, we had a
That's
couple of
gossip.
nice nights in Old Finnegan's, didn't we? What a fantastic pub!
It
And,
is. Well, there are lots of fantastic pubs, like PJ Clark's is a good pub. Everyone has their own preference. And the other thing, choice is very important. That you can have your breakfast in one restaurant and have your lunch in another restaurant, and definitely go to the Milton for the dinner and see if you
well,
meet Paddy Murphy and
funnily enough,
Lucy Ward.
The Milton has well established
It is.
its food reputation. I mean,
Yes.
it's 11 years now on the trot.
Yes.
So there's been COVID. There's been a whole bunch of things that have come
Yeah.
along. It has survived those things.
That's important.
Yeah, yeah. It's really.
And tell me a bit about the office. I'm a bigger fan of the Milton because I just know it longer and I've been there.
Yeah, of
more.
course. The office. How would I say it? It's younger than
Okay,
me, and certainly younger than you, John.
that's easy.
No, there's it seems to be quite a younger crowd going in there.
That's good. Well, that's a variety
Yeah.
and a diversity, I guess, too.
What's that?
It's like a diverse, like you have probably a different menu, a different drinks menu, I assume, as well.
Yeah, I think that it's simpler. You know, it's more conducive to kind of go in there and having a drink rather than the Milton. Probably people go in there and they go for a dinner and they go for a meal
Right.
and that
Yeah,
type of
I've
thing.
been there for birthday parties, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
It's conducive to all of that, yeah.
yeah,
Well, long may the Milton last and long may the office last. And if you have to just modify the menus, well, so be it.
yeah, yeah.
And then if people can afford, like Paddy Murphy and Lucy Ward, if they can afford, if she can get her tequila and he can get his Hennessy brandy,
Well, listen, look,
and live happily ever after.
maybe I'll meet Paddy and Lucy, and maybe
You will.
I can come up with a special arrangement there. You know.
I think they're well able to afford what they want, And they're lucky as well. From what I gather, they don't have any babies or kids. So what they spend on themselves because kids
Yeah,
are expensive.
yeah,
I'm sure when Paul O'Grady goes out today to buy clothes for young Jimmy, Jimmy won't live on the few dollars I give him at Christmas, which is very few dollars at Christmas. And I hate to remind him that this Christmas might be less. Jimmy, I'm sorry, man. But Paula is very frugal, and I'm sure she'll stock up in the best of everything for him because he
yeah,
deserves it.
yeah,
But babies are important, kids are important. You have family.
yeah. Well, funnily enough, like there's a
And they get what they want.
well, for the most part, I think. But you touched on there, like there's a bunch of lads that go into the Milton later on at night. So we're one of the few places that still has a 4 o'clock license.
Okay.
New York City doesn't do that anymore. The city that
Right.
doesn't. So the 4 a.m. licenses are gone. It's back now. If you were starting the process of getting a liquor license, you 2 a.m.
Okay.
But anyway, I digress. But later on in the night, the Milton becomes kind of a gay bar. You know, there's all the gay lads come from the toolbox and they
Okay.
come a few drinks and
It's a $2 a garage, is it? Is that a garage? Is it a garage?
of sorts.
Okay.
No, it's a bar. It's a bar just down the street and a great bar. But to your point about kids and all that kind of stuff, the best thing that ever happens any place is have the gay fellas come in because they have the discretionary income.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
They're all professionals and
When I remember in Ireland when that kind of came out and people were more open and more accepting to gay people, I remember my mother saying, she said, once upon a time you'd only see a gay person on television and now they're fucking everywhere. But a big thing was the strength of the gay pound or the gay euro or the pink dollar as it was known.
the pink dollar, yeah, the pink dollar.
Dollars. So there's more pink dollars than green dollars, because they have more money to spend. They don't have the kids they just have what they have and they spend it lavishly,
Yeah.
And good for them as well that they know how to enjoy themselves. There's more
fantastic.
to gay than being gay. You have to be happy gay as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about Ireland. To be honest, when you look, we're gone a long time. You a bit longer than me, but I think Ireland didn't it turn into a nicer place? I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Time,
Well, your friend, I think he was your friend Bishop Casey. When he had sex with Annie Murphy, and they produced a baby. Takes two to tangle and one to carry the baby.
Wasn't that extraordinary when she was on the Late Late Show and the kind of attack on her was it was extraordinary. It was indicative of the time in Ireland, wasn't it?
Well, that was all conservative Ireland,
Yeah.
and the Catholic Church, and they couldn't see, they were brainwashed to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church and like the football were two big things, I guess. If you didn't play Gaelic football, you played soccer, you were viewed as a bit British, and if you played rugby, you certainly were a snob. And when
Except in Limerick.
I heard that when Michael D. McAndrew was on here, sports, he educated me on that one because I always thought rugby players were doctors and lawyers, and he said no. If people are good sports people, they are, But that's a whole other topic. And
Well,
Michael D. will be back again.
Limerick, funnily enough, has that. Well, rugby, you're correct, has that reputation of being a sort of an elitist sport or whatever you want to say. But I think in Limerick, the phrase that was always used was from dockers to doctors.
Yes, from doctors to doctors, yeah. That's interesting. I must give a shout out. I have a friend doing a football pool for the All Ireland football final. That's the last Sunday in July, and Michael D. McAndrew will be back on to give us some updates on the teams that will be playing in the final. And indeed, he was here last weekend for the Galway-New York game, and he did give good commentary and praise to the Galway for beating New York. So if anybody's interested in gambling in a football pool like a Super Bowl, they can reach out to me. My email will pop up there, jhfornews@yahoo.com. They can gamble $500 if they still have it to win $50,000. Not bad. And I think my friend told me it's about 50 boxes left. So it's not late to get in and gamble. I'm trying to think if I have any other shout outs to do, but that's the football pool. Get into that. I have an art gallery in the Bronx. People died, left me a lot of art, so I can afford to sell it very, very cheap or donate it to a church or a school.
What about me? Do you ever send anything over to me? No?
You're more than welcome to visit the art gallery. You select what you like.
I remember when you were.
And you can pick your own price.
I remember when you were peddling the Italian wine at Christmas. That was great.
Yes.
That was fantastic, by the way. Remember that Italian wine?
The Italian wine, yes, I do. Yeah, I still have a supplier for that.
Yeah.
But if you want Italian, you get Italian.
Yeah.
If you want French, you get French.
Yeah.
So I do have contacts for most things. Tariffs or no tariffs. So Paul, give me the contact information for the office and give me the contact information for the Milton pub. How do we get?
Anybody listening? You're more than welcome to come up and say
Yeah,
hello.
is there an email or an Instagram thing? Okay, and we'll
post.
put it up on the screen for you. Okay. So with that, I sign out in my Irish language, as Gaeilge, Gaeilge space Gaeilge. And I'm going to say Slán, Awalya, and Slán to you, Paul. So for
Slán,
now, Slán.